Wow, that was inviting. Thank you. I am so excited this day has come for our children in the state of Illinois. And I have many people to thank for that, and they're all standing behind me. And there's some in the audience, but I'd like to thank Darren Riesberg from the State Board of Ed, who was my co-pilot on this venture. Darren, you did an awesome, fabulous job, and I really appreciate you and the children of Illinois will as well. They ran me here, so I've got to catch my breath. I'm not in shape like I used to be. And so I'm sure many of you want to know, how did we get this done? When you have so many dynamic leaders who all care about education and how we teach our children. But I've got to tell you guys, there's so many rumors and misinformation about these dynamic people standing behind me. The reform groups, the education groups, the management groups, the legislators, we all agree that our children come first. We all agree that the most important effort in our negotiations is, at the end of the day, what's best for the child in the classroom. And that's how we did it, and thank all of you so much. There was a number of initiatives in this package, and many people would narrowly focus it down to just strike. Let's not do that. Let's not miss the moment to acknowledge the many significant reforms that will all tie together and have a huge impact on the learning experience for the child and on the teacher profession. Let's acknowledge their profession is what it is. It's an awesome profession. They have our children in their hands more than some parents have that child during a constructive day. And so I have the awesome challenge of being the MC. So I would love to begin to invite some of the individuals who played a major part in this to the podium. Let me start by saying the governor is pleased with this initiative. He supports this proposal, and I did have personal conversations with him as well. Lieutenant Governor Sheila Simon, please come on up and express your excitement for this.
I will, yes. I am excited, and on behalf of the governor, who's asked me to be his education point person, I've been pleased to participate in a small way in the process. And I would like to say that I'm a fan of the process that you engaged in. I'm a fan of the participants who engaged in that process, and I'm a fan of the product. And I think this is a model that we ought to look at in terms of who is involved in the conversation. Because you involved a great number of folks, folks that would not necessarily be involved in other states in this kind of a discussion. And the real winners are the people who are not at any of the conversations, and that's the kids. So I thank you, Senator, and everyone who's been involved in this. It's a real step forward. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. Our chairman of the Senate Education Committee, Senator Meeks, would you like to say a few words?
You know, as the Attorney General said, in most states the legislative process is that the legislature has the power to pass bills. And the legislators could have gone in, drafted a bill, said to both sides, this is how it's going to be done. But one of the remarkable things about this piece of legislation, and this legislation can never be mentioned without mentioning the name Kimberly Lightford. If there was a way to name it Kimberly Lightford Senate Bill 7, that's what I think we should name it. Because what she has shown us in this remarkable process is that when you bring everybody to the table, every stakeholder, and you give everybody equal say. And the remarkable thing about what Kim was able to do is that she was not partial to either side. And everybody tried to lobby her to be on my side. Everybody from the mayor of the city of Chicago to some of the wealthiest people in the city, everybody said, see it my way. And she wouldn't. She wouldn't take the bait. She said, I'm going to be a fair negotiator. I'm going to give each side their chance. And I think that in the process of the few months, each side recognized that she was a fair negotiator, and that's why everybody was willing to give in. Everybody gave some. Everybody will tell you their side gave the most. But it was because of Kimberly that all of us sat at the table. We trusted her as a negotiator, and the kids win in the state of Illinois. The process wins, and congratulations to Kimberly Lightford on her negotiating skills.
And that's why I put him in the lineup so soon. He told my secrets, actually. I believe my passion is why it's important to negotiate fairly, and that's education and youth development and servicing our children across the state. We had a bipartisan level of support in negotiations. This is not a one-sided venture in any manner, and I'd like to invite Senator Matt Murphy to the podium.
Thank you, Senator Lightford. And I want to start out, too, by commending her for her work on this. And that sounds a lot of the time like a platitude, and you often hear legislators in particular talk about how hard they work on a bill, and it's night and day. I made the comment to her, a lot of the time we hear people say that and we kind of roll our eyes because we know that's not necessarily the case. This time, this was tough. This took a lot of work. It took a lot of commitment. There's a lot of people standing up here who share one goal to make education better, but often disagree on the best way to get there and believe passionately in their view of the best way to get there. Getting everybody who feels so passionately about an important issue to stay on focus, stay on track, and actually stand here with an agreed bill is a tremendous accomplishment. And I commend her staff. I commend the people standing here for being willing to be led. The bill, Senate Bill 7, improves the quality of education statewide, and I believe will save taxpayers money. That, to me, is a win-win. I don't know how you come out of a process feeling better than saying we improve the quality of education for kids statewide, and we're going to make it easier for taxpayers to save money. I would have loved to have seen more by way of reform. Everybody up here will say, as Senator Meeks said, I gave more, I wish there were something else, but the bottom line is we have a bill that improves things. We make it more likely that kids have the better teachers in their classroom. We make it more likely that kids in Chicago will have a longer, better school day. We make it more likely that taxpayers get a better deal. And we make it less likely that those divisive strikes that are rare already are even more rare, and that communities will be less divided and kids will not have to face the uncertainty of the strike. With that, I again thank everyone for their willingness to work on this. I'm proud to be a part of it, and I'd like to hand it over to a colleague of mine, a lifelong educator, Hall of Fame basketball coach, Senator Dave Luchtefeld.
She took my thunder. She took my thunder. Coach.
Well, thank you. Again, Senator Lightford stuck with this. You know, she's the one person who was at probably every meeting, and other than maybe some of the players in this particular legislation. And you know, we talk about reform a lot in this Capitol. We've had a lot of reform bills, and legislators get up and say we did it, and then you don't really see a whole lot of difference when it's all over. This is one of those things, I think, whose time had come. I think both Madigan and Cullerton both decided that we needed to do some things. I think the players who were involved in this saw that this was going to happen and that they better be on board, and they were, and they certainly advocated for what they believed in. And I think you're going to see, I guess the good part about this particular legislation is, does it make a difference? You know, we do a lot of stuff that doesn't make a difference, and we can't see the difference when it's over. I think this is significant enough that it makes a difference. Now, will you see a huge difference? Education all of a sudden is going to take off and be the greatest in the country? Probably not. You know, there are some issues that we can't solve with legislation. You know, if you send kids to schools with the desire to learn, with desire, with some discipline, and they respect authority, and they know what they're there for, that comes an awful lot from the parents, and we can't fix them. but we can do the best job we can with the product that we get. So I think you'll see some change. I think it's significant, and an awful lot of that credit should go to certainly the people who were willing to step to the table and help out, but Senator Lightford, who stuck with it and just said we're going to have something, and I think she had a lot of people pulling for her, and you did a good job. Thank you.
Oh, I'm excited. Thank you, Amanda. You know, you sometimes forget staff, and I've got to tell you, she was right there. She's my staff, sitting here, education staff, and she did a phenomenal job partnering with Darren Reesberg. So I wanted to make sure we acknowledge Amanda. Yes, you have to give it up for Amanda. And so we would love to invite the state superintendent to the podium. And Darren, can you come on along with him? There's no hiding. You work too hard. Superintendent Cook and Deputy Superintendent Reesberg.
There's lots of love going on here. This is fantastic. It's always hard to come up with new material at these events, but Senator, let me add my thanks to all of you. This is great leadership. Days like this make me proud to be an Illinois citizen. There's reform going on in other places in the country that's a lot rougher and doesn't take us to the end goal that we need. A couple points I'll just add. This isn't just a bill about teachers. It's about administrators, principals, superintendents, school boards, and actually all of us, because schools depend on communities and involvement from everyone, from parents. They don't work otherwise. And that's what we need in Illinois, and that's what I think is demonstrated here. So I really am proud of all of them. And I also just want to say the hard work begins with implementation, and we've got to keep working together with implementation to make sure that things are done right, things are done fairly, and that we're seeing students come first, which is demonstrated here. So again, let me add my thanks to all the leadership, and thank you very much. Now we can have Darren back perhaps some of the time.
Thank you, Senator. To me, this was just an absolute pleasure to be involved with so many tremendous leaders from all aspects of education. This is why I think Dr. Cook, myself, and all the members of the State Board of Education continue working each and every day, because we're lucky enough to be involved with a system that's very passionate about doing what's best for kids. And Senator Lightford, as everybody has said, brought us to the point where we were able, against all odds, to come to just a wonderful resolution, and we at the State Board are very excited to be doing all we can to help implement this with fidelity. So thanks again for all of your wonderful work. Amanda, thank you for being my partner, too, in helping co-pilot this. But we're just very, very proud, and thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Darren. Well, we know no marriage is perfect. If you're married, you know it requires work consistently. And so with that, you know, when I think of union groups and when we first started negotiating, it was always the unions aren't going to be working with you well. They'll be combative. They'll be hard to address. They're not willing to give on any issues. And that is so far from the truth. The Chicago Teachers Union, the Illinois Education Association, the Illinois Federation of Teachers unions combined were so effective in expressing their concern for their teachers, but also recognizing that it was certainly time to reform how the system works so that they too can also acknowledge their highly qualified teachers. And so it's really important that we know it was a total effort of teammanship and working together. And I'd like to invite Ken Swanson, Karen Lewis, and Dan Montgomery to the podium.
Thank you, Senator Lightford. It is indeed a pleasure to be here. I guess I should turn my notes right side up so I can actually read them. This is a historic day. I believe what we have here is historic education reform. And when you look at the breadth and depth of the reforms, I think you will readily see that this is going to be both good for children, and it preserves in an appropriate way the voice of the professionals doing the work with students every day. For IEA, this continues an engagement in education reform that goes back to our involvement in the Burnham Plan, our involvement in helping draft Senate Bill 2288, which never came to pass because it was going to be the reform companion piece to House Bill 174, which regrettably never passed. we have our own Priority 1 document, and I have copies if anyone would like to see it later. Our involvement in the para evaluation law last year, the Race to the Top legislation. So this just, for us, was the next step. We now hope that the Senate and the House will be able to act promptly, to do their due diligence, to look at the bill, and we look forward soon to being at the bill signing with the governor. And in closing, I would just like to say that what this bill contains and the process that we used, and Senator Lightford is being appropriately signaled out for her fine work here, what this shows is that to have meaningful reform that will work, you have to have the unions at the table. And here in Illinois, what we've shown is you do not need to have draconian, unwarranted attacks on public employee rights, collective bargaining. You can do this through collective bargaining. You can do this through bringing the parties to the table. So Wisconsin, Ohio, Indiana, other states, look to Illinois. We'll show you how to do it the right way. Thank you.
Thanks, Ken. I'm Dan Montgomery of the IFT. I want to join the parade of praise for Senator Lightford, and Superintendent Cook is right. It's hard to say some new things after this, but it is true that I think those of us in the room would tell you this would not have happened without her leadership and her commitment. And this process was long and it was difficult because there are important issues that everyone in this room believes deeply about. And that's a good thing. And so it does get difficult at times, but without Senator Lightford's strong commitment to, as she often would, remind us we're here about the kids, we wouldn't have been here. We wouldn't have gotten here today. And so I'm proud to have been part of that process, and of everyone. I'm proud of everyone in the room today. I do want to echo a comment that Ken made, which is, we felt very strongly all along that we need to have the teacher's voice as part of this. And too often, I think around the country, and even here in Illinois in the past, there have been discussions about reforms that haven't included the practitioners. And to have, for our parents in Illinois to see all these people together and to know that school management and teachers' unions and everyone else here are together looking out for what's going to make schools better and make their kids' experience better every day in the classroom. That's what counts, that's significant, and that's what we're here to do. So it is historic. I think this is truly a national model. I think that the progress, the process, and the end result is something that we have to hold on to and remember as we go ahead. There's many other challenges, not only in education, but in other issues. And hopefully this will compel us all to remain committed to stay in the room and do what's best for everyone involved. So I want to thank the Senator again.
Good afternoon. I'm Karen Lewis. I'm president of the Chicago Teachers Union, and I'm also the executive vice president of the Illinois Federation of Teachers. And not only is this a historic moment for the legislation, but I have to love the process. Things work when people come together to resolve issues. It's where ideology meets reality. And how do we work together to get to the next step? Because ultimately, every one of us on the union side has passion for teaching, and we have passion for our kids. And the fact is that often in this conversation, that is always left out. So what I wanted to say is that I, as one of the newest members of this, have never been through this process at all. If all bills work like this, it's got to be a good thing. It's absolutely got to be a good thing. Senator Lightford said something to us. If everybody's happy at the end of the day, she did not do her job properly. And I would say that there's happy, there's sad, there's all kinds of emotions here. But what is really important is the unity. And I can honestly say that we've been told all these rumors about other people too. And the fact is, the unions stuck together. That's also unheard of. So I am proud to be a part of this process. And I also like to thank Senator Lightford. There are no words. You think we're kidding when we're saying this. There are no words for what she's done for us and for the kids of Illinois. Thank you.
So I can help Dan be creative and come up with some more complimentary ways to give me compliments. So the next speakers, be thinking of them. And so that's how I did it, too, in meetings. When we found ourselves up against a brick wall, it was always that moment to just breathe. And so there was more rumors. There was rumors that this group came into Illinois, Stand for Children, and they're very wealthy and they have a lot of money and they're going to make us move. And so unlike the truth. We were already in the midst of education reform, as Ken just mentioned, from the IFT. We passed the longitudinal data system. We passed performance counts, Performance Evaluation Act, We passed charter school negotiation. That took me 9 months to negotiate that issue. And so we were already at the table in race to the top negotiations and determined from the Burnham Plan, from Senate Bill 2288 and all those other initiatives that this is an area that we have to continue discussions on. So unlike the truth of whomever's printing it, it did not take an organization to come to the state of Illinois to tell us what's best for our children. But what they did do was they grabbed my previous education staff person, Jessica. That was the best thing that they could have ever done because she knew my strategy. And so I would love to invite Jessica to the podium, along with Robin Staines of Vance, Illinois, who has a passion for what she's doing, and I love working alongside Robin, and to the podium. Robin and Jessica.
Okay. I do want to emphasize, Robin Staines, I'm Executive Director of Advance Illinois, and for those who may not be familiar with us, my founding co-chairs are former Governor Jim Edgar and former Commerce Secretary Bill Daley, and I hope that says in a nutshell that we're a bipartisan group. We take a diverse and comprehensive approach to education, where we are now, where we need to go, and what Senator Lightford couldn't be more true, that the state for the last few years, and I would hazard to say before that, has been working very hard to develop a comprehensive plan. And while we were unfortunately not the recipient of a $500 million through the Race to the Top federal grant program, what we got as a result is a blueprint, a comprehensive blueprint for educational reform for the state that everybody that you see standing behind us and even more came together to help create, with an unbelievable amount of leadership from the State Board of Education and Superintendent Chris Cook. And what is here today, this legislation, Senate Bill 7, is the logical next extension of this work. And I want to compliment all the people who have worked on this, because the truth is, and I'm delighted, Darren, to hear you say this was a pleasure, because I remember some of those conversations, and there were some very hard conversations on some very tough issues. And everybody here stepped up. And they all agreed, they stepped up for the right reason, that we were overdue to take a fresh look at how we award tenure. We were overdue to take a fresh look at how we handle the dismissal process. We were overdue to take a look at how transfers and vacancies are filled and managed at the district and the school level. We were overdue to take a look at whether and how the public should be informed when there are hard negotiations and impasses happening during contract negotiations. And what you see as a result here is a sea change in how those decisions are going to be handled going forward. And it's healthy and good that we got here together, because we're going to have to implement this collaboratively at the back end. So Senator Lightford, thank you for bringing us all together, for the other senators who were involved, and for the House leaders and members who helped get this started back over the winter months. Wouldn't be here without them as well. So thank you.
Jessica Handy with Stand for Children. I want to echo the thanks to Senator Lightford, who is amazing. Also want to thank Senators Meeks, Murphy, Maloney, Luchtefeld, these people that put so much time and effort into this. Echoing the thanks of the House members who kicked this off back in November with their reform committee. Amanda, Jeanette, Gwen, and Sarah, staff for the 4 caucuses, who I think have fielded more frantic phone calls from this group of us than anybody. The reforms in this bill put Illinois at the head of the class nationally. Any one of these changes alone would be significant. Together, this package is monumental. Having a great teacher in the classroom is the most important school-based factor in affecting student outcomes. And this shift to making performance the driving factor in personnel decisions is ultimately a huge win for children. We're also thrilled that we're bringing more transparency to the contract negotiation process. We're thrilled that CPS is going to be enabled to lengthen the amount of instructional time they provide their children. And we're optimistic about passage. Look forward to continuing to work together collaboratively as this moves through the process and through implementation.
Thank you. Now, I believe that it's important to also have parent involvement in negotiations when you're talking about their children. And so I would love to welcome Jonathan Goldman of Parent PAC to the podium.
Thank you, Senator. My name is Jonathan Goldman. I'm a co-founder of Parent PAC, which came together several months ago in an effort to give a voice to the frustrations and concerns and also the vision that public school parents have in the state of Illinois. And I first became a part of this process a little bit later than some of the others back in the first week of January when I came down and testified at the Senate Special Committee hearing. And my message then was pretty simple. This is very complicated subject matter. It's very important, and we need to take the time to do it right and to get it right. And there needs to be a parent voice at the table. And I think you've heard from everyone up here that the outcome today is a process amazingly led by Senator Lightford that brought everyone together around the table and did it right, took the time, got it right, and the outcome is a bill that I think addresses many of the frustrations that parents have, those frustrations on a daily basis where you sometimes feel trapped in the system, you feel like you're banging your head against the brick wall that is the outside of the school building, and it's a major win for the school children of Illinois. It brings reforms right into the classroom where the parents' concerns are about what goes on with their kids on a daily basis, and at a minimum is the most important piece of education legislation in this building since 1995. I was part of that process, and ultimately it's probably even more far-reaching. That package that year was about crisis management. This is really a good look forward as to how do we ensure that we provide the best education for our kids. I've been very happy and proud to be part of this process, so thank you again, Senator, and look forward to it passing both chambers and being signed by the governor. I've got 12 more years as a public school parent until my youngest daughter graduates from high school, and I know that this is going to make a difference in those 12 years. So thank you.
Thank you. School Management Alliance were very critical in this process. Sarah did a fine job along with Ben, and it's important that we know that management plays a key role as well. It's just not the teacher's responsibility, but extends further than that with the principal, superintendent, someone mentioned, and also school board members that are elected across our state and in Chicago that are appointed. But I'd like to bring up Brent Clark from the School Management Alliance.
I know there's been many accolades for Senator Lightford, but trying to sum this up and, get to bring one more item, Chris, she just had to be totally committed to this process to see it to the end for us to be here today. So thank you. It's pretty amazing that we're here. I think in summary, the education reform package that's going to be moving in the Senate and hopefully in the House, it's good for Illinois, it's good for our democracy, and it's good for our kids. And when you look at it from that perspective and the dynamic leaders that have worked on it, it's good for our entire state. It was a good, tough, honest negotiations, and everyone gave in some in order to achieve the greater good. I believe there was some respect, and still is respect, among all the stakeholders that participated. Most importantly, these reforms will help maximize the educational opportunities for children, and that, in the end, is our overriding goal. The performance evaluation piece, where we're going to be looking at the performance of the teacher in the classroom, is a huge sea change. That's a culture changer in schools. We're extremely thankful to all of the senators that participated, the lieutenant governor, on building this consensus legislation. And we're cautiously optimistic that the House will look upon this favorably, and we look forward to hearing their input. Thank you.
And our last speaker, hold on, you guys, we're almost there. Stephen Donovan and Rachel Resnick from CPS, because there's always a second side to every discussion. So as CTU and CPS, in my 13 years of watching the changeover administrations, I believe this was the best collaboration that I have been a part of in negotiations. Rachel?
It is good afternoon, so good afternoon, everyone. It feels a little hot under these lights, but I am here with my wonderful colleague, Stephanie Donovan, and I also have to mention my other colleague, Joe Moriarty, who is a little shyer and is in the audience. But I cannot say enough. I have to add to the accolades for Senator Lightford. What she did was extremely important for the children in the state of Illinois. We are not divided, city of Chicago and suburban and downstate. It is for all children in this wonderful state. This was a hard process, very hard process. It was arduous, but I have to say it was a process that had integrity. And it had integrity because people were passionate about their positions. Both management and the unions came to the table presenting their positions, but ultimately what was decided was for the good of children, the good of our students. And that really was wonderful because we are obligated, our higher calling is to children. We had both a moral and civic responsibility to collaborate with each other, to do what was best for education here in Illinois. And I hope this is a springboard for more honest conversations. We will not always agree. But what we can do together, when we air our differences, we find that, in fact, we have many more similarities and differences. So, Senator Lightford, I applaud you. You are absolutely wonderful. Integrity. I think that's your middle name.
Thank you.
Stephanie?
Obviously, I have the same high regard and gratitude and respect for Senator Lightford as others have mentioned. And I think the only thing I would like to add to what's been said already is that I personally learned a tremendous amount based on the experiences that others shared about their district, their history as a union member, the perspective of teachers, the perspective of administrators. I feel like I personally am exiting this process a far more educated advocate for reform. And I believe it's wonderful. I feel like I've made new friends, and I don't mean that in a simplistic or childlike way, but this process has been amazing. I've been very honored to be a part of it, and I thank you all for sharing in this with me.
Thank you. That was Chicago Public Schools. And I just noticed, this is funny, and I know I'm on air, but I just invited all the attendees to speak instead of the agenda. That is so funny. Only a couple of us, this is another way how I get things done. Only a couple of us were supposed to speak, but I think in due diligence, we all deserved a right to speak. And Diane Rutledge, Erica Lindley, Peg Agnos, they were also involved and did a fabulous job. I want to make sure you guys are also recognized for your tenacity and your work. Questions?
Could I hear from each of the union leaders? There's talk about Stand for Children coming in and bringing in a lot of money. The unions are unrivaled in terms of their participation in the political process and their money. You probably didn't need to give as much as you did. What did you get from this process? And was it a matter of looking at what's happening in other states and saying we better be at the table or we'll get steamrolled here?
I'll start. Well, I mean, I think the basic premise of the question, what did you get, is, I mean, this is it. I mean, I think we've all been saying what we all got here is something that we believe collectively is going to help children and schools in Illinois. You know, people have talked about, yeah, there's a lot of difficulty in the negotiations process to get here, but, you know, people remain committed to an end process. I'm proud of the unions. I'm proud of everyone here, but I'm proud we did stand up for what we believed in was right to have the voice of our members heard as teaching professionals. And I think we did that well, and we're confident that we have a good agreement here, a good bill that ought to be law, and will be significant in protecting the professional voice of teachers and also allowing them in that process to advocate for kids so that schools are better.
What sort of feedback are you getting from your membership, though, particularly older tenured teachers that will no longer have the same faith that they're going to be able to keep their jobs? If you go to performance, they're obviously the ones who are getting paid more. So the school districts are having these tight budgets. Are you hearing from some of those tenured teachers? Why'd you do this? I don't like it. We want you voted out against one. Like, it's really anyway.
Too late for that, I guess.
But you know what I'm saying.
Are there concerns among some of our more senior staff? Sure. And I think as we are able to show them how this new process will work and how performance and certification are significant factors, I think we'll be able to alleviate much of that concern. And in terms of the concern about would people be riffed who have more experience simply to save money. We have a safeguard built into this process to police that so that that won't be happening. And I would hope no district would turn to that. Far before we ever got to that state of desperation, I think some of us in the room believe we need to find the answer to adequate school funding.
What is that, I'm sorry, what is that safeguard? Can you kind of briefly?
Senator?
You guys, did you receive the packet? Oh, you want to?
Yeah.
Come on.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Basically, what the concern was is that people would do just what you questioned. So there's language in there that says that salaries and benefits of a person cannot be considered in the dismissal process. It has to absolutely be their qualifications, certifications, performance, and relevant experience. So that's the safeguard.
Since we're talking about this RIF stuff, I need some clarity here because there's a difference between what you're doing downstate and with Chicago. Why wasn't Chicago addressed in this?
Chicago wasn't addressed in this because we're in litigation that actually deals with this because of our own law that has been done without, at this moment, we don't have a recall statute. So we are working on that, and that's why it wasn't included now.
I would also just mention that since the 95 Act, Chicago has already had a performance-based component to its layoff process, and part of our discussions was using that model or provision and including a performance-based component downstate. Chicago also has a unique bargaining provision over layoffs. So since 95, it's been a separate structure. It was discussed and will continue to be discussed.
Can you anticipate you'll revisit this in state legislation, or what do you expect?
It's a subject of bargaining at the bargaining table. We are in litigation right now, and those conversations are ongoing.
Can I ask you about that appeals court ruling? Because I know the union, I'm trying to reconcile the union lawyers and the city lawyers' view of that. As I read the ruling, it said that it appears to say that the city doesn't have to bargain this new arrangement with the union. Is that accurate? And maybe Ms. Lewis.
With all due respect, I believe that's beyond the scope of what we're here to discuss. I'd be happy to speak with you offline about.
Let's be real here. We stood here. We listened to everybody.
I'm sorry. It's pending litigation. It's under appeal. It's not related to what we're here to announce.
Well, but the appeals court said that you have to come up with a procedure. In the litigation, the court proceeding, the union, the CPS said we don't have a procedure. Now they've directed you to come up with one, but apparently you don't have to bargain it with the union. Can you just bring us up to speed? Are you going to appeal that and you're not doing anything, or are you putting a procedure together?
We have petitioned the Seventh Circuit for a rehearing en banc, which is permitted if a appellate court decision is 2-1, and we are also in discussions with the union consistent with our labor law obligations and consistent with our ongoing practice to collaborate on these matters.
So you are going to bargain?
We are going to discuss it, and we are going to comply with our legal obligations to bargain as required under the Education Labor Relations Act.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to stay focused to the bill. And here's how I got my negotiations done. We stayed focused. We stayed focused on the issue at hand, and that was addressing the issues in reform, this package. If you like to talk, and Mike, that's why you're good at what you do. If you'd like to talk about anything outside of the scope of this negotiation, I'm pretty sure CPS, CTU would be happy to entertain your questions at a later juncture. Are there any other questions pertaining to this excitement that we have going in the state of Illinois that I'm not going to let die?
Will the RIF considerations in this apply to current contracts? How does that fit with current contracts?
Yes. And well, there's a grandfathering in provision that current collective bargaining agreements that were already put in place, we would allow up to 24 months for those bargaining agreements, and after that 24-month period from the effective date of the law, it would be changed.
So it won't have, like, apparently there are recalls will be coming within the next few weeks. Would that have any effect? Will this process be changed by the legislation?
No, that part isn't effective immediately, right? We have what we call pre-para and post-para, and some of the ideas that we were trying to implement from our Performance Evaluation Act. So you might have to go back and revisit that just a little bit, and I'd be happy to go over that with you.
How do you measure who the best teachers are? How do you measure performance?
Would a teacher union like to answer that, or you want my personal opinion?
Well, from our perspective, it's a combination. It will be observation and evaluation by para-trained and para-certified evaluators, and there will be a component of student growth. That has yet to be developed. That's part of the implementation of the para law we need time to do that. But we will be developing at the local level, collaboratively, how we measure student growth, and that student growth will then be another component of the performance evaluation. Yeah. So it will be a combination of observation of the trained certified evaluator and student growth data as developed and measured locally.
Thank you. I think that'd be real difficult because if you rely on standardized tests, that's probably not going to be well received. So I'm hearing that it's going to be something else, and it sounds like it's going to be a tough job for you.
Well, you know, I agree with you. You cannot measure a student performance on standardized testing alone. But, you know, the thrust of this is to, at the end of the day, allow students that are in the lowest performance schools an opportunity to receive a highly qualified teacher, and to make sure that we have an opportunity to keep our kids in public schools without having the threat of the strike. And I want us to remain focused on those issues. I like to close by saying I urge the House not to change any item in this legislation whatsoever. All of these individuals have worked for the past 6 months making sure that they gave as much as they could, they received as much as they could. I don't think we have one full happy camper here, because that's not the art of negotiation. If you leave out of the room with all your asks, then perhaps you bullied your way through the process. And we know how we feel about bullies in the state of Illinois. No bullying. And so well, because I'm in the Senate chamber, I represent the negotiations that took place there. And for my 13 years around this process, it's not a new measure that an item would be negotiated in either chamber. And on this specific issue, the item was negotiated in the Senate. We're looking forward to House members to embracing this legislation, because it has been a work in progress, an agreed upon effort by all the people standing here. And I would hope that no individual member would take their personal opinions I think conflict of interest and began to add on their own ideology. Let me say this. We're going upstairs to pass this bill in committee, and you're invited to come and hear all the tidbits about it, and then we're going to pass it on the Senate floor today. And so, thank you. Absolutely not. I think Representative Eddy is a superintendent or have been or of the like, and I think that's something we should engage in, recognizing. Thank you.
So can I ask a follow-up in terms of, we're here for this big celebration, but obviously there are things left to do. We've had all these organizations. Senator Murphy, I think, even mentioned, you know, this isn't going to be it. So what is next? Are we going to have to continue negotiations, or is this it? You implement it, see how it goes, or is there anything left on the table that, when it comes to these sort of issues, that you're going to have to come back and address again? I don't see any. If someone else recognizes something differently, Senator Maloney. Senator Maloney. Come on over here. Senator Maloney was also an advocate in this process, worked really hard, was a former teacher, and gave a lot of great input. I just noticed him standing there, and if you'd like to add anything, Senator, you may. Please.
The only thing I'd like to add is we are all familiar with the book and the film, The Miracle Worker. This is the new miracle worker here, and I was involved in many of the conversations, and quite frankly, it was difficult issues. But I think what kept people coming back is two things. It was my observation is the children of Illinois and the respect for each other. And as you can imagine, some of these issues, there was some heated conversation, but I never detected one iota of disrespect for any member of the negotiating process. And so as a legislator, as a former teacher, as a father and grandfather, I'm proud of everybody here and what this process accomplished. Thank you.
SB 7 is in committee. committee right now?
We're headed up there now. If you allow us to be dismissed, it's Senate Bill 630 for the sake of the discussion in a timely fashion of meeting our deadline. The bill that will be sent over to the House will be Senate Bill 7. At the end of the day, we'll be able to find a measure to get that done. And I invite you all to the Education Committee. Yes, Chairman Meeks is pulling me to his committee. Yes, thank you.